Today we're unboxing a story that starts with a simple toy, leads to a totally heartbreaking misfortune, and believe it or not, ends with a multi-billion-dollar industry that's changing how we think about our brains at work. Yep, this is the story of the fidget toy phenomenon. Okay, so let's start by rewinding the clock just a little bit to a moment that I'm sure a lot of us remember very clearly. Let's call it the summer of the spinner. It was the fad that just completely took over the world. It felt like it came out of nowhere, right? All of a sudden, this simple three-pronged piece of plastic and ball bearings started spinning its way into, well, everyone's hands. And I really do mean everywhere. You couldn't escape them. From playgrounds to corporate office desks, that distinct, almost hypnotic whirring sound was just a constant part of the background noise. It was a true viral sensation. I mean, it went from being this little curiosity to a global phenomenon with a speed that was just breathtaking. It was fueled by social media, of course, and that classic fear of missing out feeling. But you know, almost as fast as they appeared, the backlash started. Schools began banning them, calling them a distraction, and that really sparked the central question of this whole craze. Was this thing just a silly toy? Or was it actually a tool? Well, to even begin to answer that, we have to go back way further. And this part of the story, it's pretty unbelievable, and honestly, a little poignant. It's the story of the person who actually invented it. So get this. Way back in the early 90s, an inventor named Catherine Hettinger, who was dealing with a disorder that made her muscles weak, created a simple spinning toy so she could play with her daughter. She got it patented in 1997, but then 2005 happened. That was the pivotal year. She let the patent lapse. Fast forward 12 years, and the entire world is obsessed with the toy based on her idea, and she's not making a single penny from it. And this number, this is what makes the story so wild, $400. That was the patent renewal fee she couldn't afford back in 2005. A single decision, a single payment stood between her and what could have been an absolute fortune. But you know what's incredible is her perspective. Despite missing out on that massive payday, Hettinger has been remarkably positive. She's basically said she's just happy that her idea brought joy, and, for some, genuine relief to so many people. Hettinger's whole goal was to make a soothing toy, and it turns out her intuition was spot on. She was tapping into a really fundamental truth about how our brains work. So what is it? Why do so many of us feel that constant need to fidget? You see, fidgeting isn't just some nervous tic or a bad habit we're supposed to break. For a lot of people, it's actually an unconscious strategy that the brain uses to self-regulate. It's a way to either wake itself up to stay focused, or to calm itself down when things get a little too overwhelming. And there's some really solid science here. For someone with ADHD, for example, that little bit of physical movement isn't a distraction at all. It can actually be essential for learning because it helps boost key chemicals in the brain. And for anxiety, that repetitive motion can trigger a calming response in your body, physically reducing stress. Okay, but as the spinner craze got bigger and bigger, so did the debate. And the science, well, it wasn't as simple as you might think. In fact, some of the research gave us some pretty conflicting answers. And this is where it gets really interesting. So on one side, you have research confirming that yes, physical movement is critical for focus in neurodivergent brains. But then, on the other side, you have separate studies that found that these specific fidget spinners, and even just doodling without structure, actually hurt memory performance. This kind of hints at a super important distinction. Maybe the type of fidgeting is what really matters. And the whole conversation wasn't just about focus either. Because these things were produced so quickly and so cheaply, with no regulation, some pretty serious safety issues popped up. We're talking choking hazards from small parts and even some products that had dangerous levels of lead. So after that crazy summer of 2017, the fidget spinner itself kind of faded away. But the market for these tools? Oh, it didn't disappear. Not at all. It evolved. It grew up and matured into this sophisticated and, honestly, surprisingly huge industry. Just look at this number. $4.37 billion. That's the estimated global market size for fidget toys in 2024. This pretty much proves that the spinner craze wasn't just some fluke. It actually uncovered this deep, real demand for sensory tools that was always there. And the market today? It looks totally different. It's become super specialized. Now you've got things like these cool, discreet steel rings for adults to use in the office, totally silent tools for professionals, and even these simple rubber bands that go on chair legs so kids can move their feet without making a sound. But this isn't just about making better toys. This whole evolution is being pushed forward by a much bigger cultural shift. We're talking about a growing awareness of neurodiversity and a real understanding that creating inclusive environments is just better for everyone. So what's the big takeaway from all this? I think it's that we need to reframe this entire conversation. It's time to move past that simple, is it a toy or a distraction, debate and start seeing these things for what they really can be. This is a huge deal in the workplace, right? Advocating for sensory tools is becoming way more common. In the US, for instance, they can be seen as a reasonable accommodation under the ADA. And the key is really to frame it as a win-win. Look, this simple tool helps me focus, which makes me more productive, and that's a clear benefit for everybody involved. And honestly, this goes way beyond just fidgets. It's all part of a much larger and really important movement towards psychological safety at work, creating environments where people actually feel safe enough to be themselves and to ask for the things they need to do their best work. And that kind of leaves us with one last big question. Maybe the focus was never really on the spinner or the tool itself. Maybe the real challenge and the much bigger opportunity is to just focus on building classrooms, offices, and communities where every single type of mind has what it needs to really, truly thrive.